This is the Capitol Rundown.
That's why today I'm repeating my pledge to establish a panel of top experts working with Bobby to investigate.
It's essentially a tax cut for starting a small business.
To basically say, what could we do more? How can we get you the tools you need? And a lot of young people simply just say they don't have time to vote.
It's all straight ahead. The Capitol Rundown starts now.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Siobhan Klepfer. A lot happened in Michigan politics over the past week, so let's get you caught up. And we begin with Labor Day, but presidential campaigning did not take a holiday. Vice President Kamala Harris was in Detroit on Monday to show her support for labor unions.
What we know is when union wages go up, everybody's wages go up. When union workplaces are safer, every workplace is safer. When unions are strong, America is strong.
Vice President Harris later joined President Joe Biden at a Labor Day rally in Pittsburgh, and it stood in contrast to former President Donald Trump, who did not spend the holiday weekend campaigning. But on his social media platform, Truth Social, the Republican continued his line of attack on the Biden-Harris administration over high prices faced by Americans and what he says is failed leadership. Whoever wins on Election Day, young people have a chance to help decide, but they don't always take it. Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson sat down with the Rundown's Sherry Jones to talk about getting younger Michiganders out to the polls.
You actually put together a report, of your office did, of voters 18 to 29. I just wanted to make sure we had that right. And about a third of them didn't vote in Ingham, Eaton, and Clinton counties, and about half of them didn't vote in Jackson and Hillsdale counties. That's disappointing.
It is. You know, in 2022, Michigan led the nation in youth vote turnout, and yet statewide, only 37% of our eligible young citizens voted. So that's why we really want to go to where people are, and we've talked to folks in Jackson, in Traverse City, in Marquette, in Grand Rapids, in Kalamazoo, in Flint, in Detroit, and now here in Lansing, to basically say, what could we do more? How can we get you the tools you need? And a lot of young people simply just say they don't have time to vote.
Well, you know, we know that if someone is younger, the less likely that they are going to vote. But what are some of the steps that you're taking to make sure that their power, their voice at the voting box is as strong as, say, the elderly constituency?
Yeah, well, we want our senior citizens, our oldest citizens to vote as much as we want our youngest citizens to vote. And while we see higher turnout numbers later on in life, the younger voters oftentimes haven't yet made a plan to vote or haven't really just adopted voting as something that they do. And so part of what we've been doing is hosting mock elections in high schools around the state. And we're imminently going to announce a website that will enable anyone to host a mock election in their school district, in their community. And that gets young people thinking, even at the elementary school level, about how to transform their voice into the ballot box and speaking at the ballot box. We actually go through a thing where they'll vote and run the election so they can see all that goes into it. But that's been really effective at helping young people see their power, even at a young age. And now we also have pre-registration in Michigan. At 16 and 17-year-olds, folks can take a step to become registered, pre-registered to vote so that they can vote as soon as they turn 18. That's also been a great tool to get people involved at a young age.
We know that also that college campuses, they are just fertile ground to help young people vote. But I think sometimes there might be some confusion. Do I vote in the town of my college campus, or do I vote from home? Can you clear that up for us?
Yeah, and that's really a choice for each citizen to make. We just want to make it easy, if they choose to vote on campus, for them to register there, get their ballot there and return it, or if they want to keep their home or their permanent residency and vote from there where perhaps they grew up, we want to enable that too. And so for a lot of folks that might mean voting absentee, but we have a QR code where on college campuses they can scan it, request their ballot to be mailed to them on college campus, and then fill it out and still have it count for their home community if that home community is in Michigan.
Now, on the flip side, how do you reach people that aren't in college or that are maybe a little disenfranchised?
Yeah, well, it's so critical because when we look at who is voting, particularly among young voters, it is people with college experience. So meeting people where they're at, if they're not in college, if they're in an apprenticeship program, if they're in the workforce already, is key to our success. So we've partnered with Michigan Works and a number of other entities, employers and labor unions as well, to connect with young people there if they choose to go that path and make sure that they are not left out of the voting process.
Coming up next, Michigan Democrats are spreading the word about Project 2025, and the state GOP is responding. Stay tuned. State Democrats met with Michigan State University students Tuesday in East Lansing to warn them about what they call the dangers of Project 2025. The Rundown's Nick Simon was there to listen in and also spoke to Republicans to hear what they have to say.
So if Trump wins, we know that he's going to use his Project 2025 to have his extreme agenda be put into place.
Project 2025 mentions abortion more than 100 times and lists dozens of ways to effectively ban the procedure nationwide.
His goal, make no mistake, is to ban abortion in all 50 states, including Michigan.
But conservatives say that trying to tie the entire Republican agenda to one document is just a distraction.
I would define it as a far-left radical conspiracy theory that I do not know anything about, and that the people that I knock doors with and the constituents that I talk to on a daily basis know nothing about it either.
Representative Jamie Thompson says that she's been a victim of similar attacks and was tagged as a supporter of the plan.
There was no article, there was no statement. It was just a screenshot of a lot of representatives' names, and our names were highlighted. And that was completely false. No one has ever asked me until this interview, actually, what I even thought about it.
The head of the Trump campaign in Michigan tells me that his official plan as president is listed in Agenda 47, not Project 2025. The official document says Trump's position on abortion remains leave it up to the states and not a national ban. But Democrats say that if you want to see the truth, you need to look at what they do, not what they say.
On Friday, Donald Trump endorsed upholding Florida's extreme abortion ban, pledging to vote against restoring reproductive freedom in every state.
Coming up, will RFK Jr. be on Michigan's ballot in November or not? The answer isn't so simple, but we will have an explanation coming up next. Stay with us. Welcome back. Former independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. filed a lawsuit August 30th in Michigan's Court of Claims against Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. He sued the Democrat in an effort to withdraw his name from Michigan's ballot in November. And on Friday, the State Court of Appeals ruled his name can be withdrawn. Now, election officials rejected Kennedy's notice of withdrawal. Kennedy argued his notice was timely and the electorate's votes could be, quote, diminished and rendered invalid, end quote, if he remains on the ballot. He filed a similar lawsuit in North Carolina on the same day. But Benson says under Michigan law, candidates who are nominated and accept a minor party's nomination, quote, shall not be permitted to withdraw, end quote. Court of Claims Judge Christopher Yates ruled Benson was correct, but the appeals court ruled Benson did not have the authority to deny Kennedy's request. Benson's office says they will appeal to the Michigan Supreme Court. It matters to Kennedy because after he dropped out, he endorsed Republican nominee Donald Trump. That endorsement came with some perks for Kennedy, who does not want to siphon votes from Mr. Trump.
That's why today I'm repeating my pledge to establish a panel of top experts working with Bobby to investigate what is causing the decades-long increase in chronic health problems and childhood diseases, including autoimmune disorders, autism, obesity, infertility, and many more.
Last week, a different Michigan Court of Claims judge ruled that liberal independent candidate for President Cornel West must remain on the ballot, an opinion welcomed by West's campaign. Former President Trump's visit to Livingston County continues to cause controversy here in Michigan. Sheriff Mike Murphy resigned from the board of directors of an organization that advocates for sexual assault victims, and the former president's visit is being given as the reason why. Last week, the La Casa Center, which also does work for victims of child abuse and domestic violence, accepted that resignation. In his notice to the board, Sheriff Murphy said he made this decision because he did not want to cloud the important work La Casa does. The Michigan Bureau of Elections is now investigating the Livingston County Sheriff's Office following accusations of violating the state's Campaign Finance Act by hosting the campaign event. Officials say they received 2 complaints against the sheriff's office. The sheriff says he does not believe the event violated the law. As for Mr. Trump, last year a jury found he sexually abused writer E. Jean Carroll in the 1990s. The former president was also recorded on audio in 2005 bragging about grabbing and kissing women without their consent. With a little under 2 months until Election Day, former President Trump stopped in his hometown to talk about the economy. At the same time, Vice President Kamala Harris was in the battleground state of Pennsylvania, and looming over it all, a debate between them scheduled for Tuesday. Our Washington correspondent Rashad Hudson has the details.
Former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris are trying to sell their economic agenda to voters, and they're testing it out on 2 very different crowds. Former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris are sharpening their economic messages about who can do more for the middle class.
I am promising low taxes, low regulations, low energy costs.
Trump told the Economic Club of New York Americans were better off under his administration.
We delivered an economic miracle, which Kamala and Joe turned into an economic disaster.
Part of his economic plan includes ending taxes on tips and Social Security benefits. The economy and inflation are still at the top of voters' minds, and it is likely to be a topic when Trump and Harris meet next Tuesday in Philadelphia for the first time ever on the debate stage. Harris was in New Hampshire Wednesday, where she unveiled a plan to let small businesses write off $50,000 in startup costs, up from the current $5,000.
It's essentially a tax cut for starting a small business.
Harris also proposed interest-free loans for small companies, a plan she calls an opportunity economy.
My plan will make our tax code more fair while also prioritizing investment and innovation.
Harris will remain in Pennsylvania, where she's holding mock debate sessions. Trump says he's ready to go. Reporting in Washington, Rashad Hudson, back to you.
All right, well, coming up next, our Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic will be here with some interesting poll numbers. That story and more when the Rundown returns. As Election Day gets closer, Michigan voters are talking to pollsters. The Rundown's Megan Vaselli spoke with our Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic about the latest numbers.
It's time to get updated politically here in the swing state of Michigan, and there's nobody better to help us out than Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic. Tim, there are new poll results showing where both the presidential and U.S. Senate races stand with Michigan voters. What are the numbers saying right now?
Now, Megan, this is kind of a fascinating story that we have going on in the presidential race, a statistical dead heat. They say it's 47-46, but it doesn't mean squat. It means they are tied. And what it really means here, the hidden story, is that Ms. Harris, the Democratic candidate, got 0 bounce out of that Democratic convention. There were a lot of folks in this town. The chatter behind the scenes was that was such a blockbuster convention that she certainly was going to come out of that convention with a lead over Donald Trump. Well, guess what? She came out of the convention and she got squat. No bounce. Tied race. However, as we look at the U.S. Senate race, Elissa Slotkin, the Democrat, does have a lead of about 8 points, which is beyond the margin of error. So this one is real. And the difference here is that Elissa Slotkin is doing much better with independent voters than Mike Rogers, the Republican challenger. And she is doing much better than Ms. Harris and that ticket on the presidential side with independent voters. And that's the difference in these 2 races. So one of them, a clear lead at this read. At the other point, a clear tie, which is the way it's been for a long, long time, Megan.
With just fewer than 2 months before the November election, should we expect these polls to change at all, very much one way or the other?
Well, here's what's going to happen. These people are going to pour a boatload of money into advertising, and they think it's going to get the people's attention. Here's the nasty little secret. There's such a thing as called political ad fatigue. You know, after you've seen 2 or 3 solid months of the same commercial over and over again, you finally tune out and say, Is there anything I can get from the kitchen to eat while these commercials are on? So yes, there will be a change. The critical thing right now is the debate on Tuesday night. This will go a long way, I think, in shaking up this race one way or the other. The lead story out of that debate could well set the tone for the rest of the campaign, knowing that things change between now and November. But this is the critical turning point, I think, of this campaign. With everything all tied up, how they perform on Tuesday night could have a major impact on the final outcome.
All right, Tim, thank you so much.
Well, coming up, we'll tell you what a new study says about so-called childless cat ladies. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The race for the White House has brought up the issue of adult voters who do not have children. Before he became the Republican nominee for vice president, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance repeatedly said people without children have no stake in the future of the country, calling them childless cat ladies. So Michigan State University researchers took a closer look at this, and they found adults who do not have or want children, so-called child-free adults, are more common than you might think. Several studies found they make up between 20 and 25% of the adult population here in Michigan, or about 1.5 million people. And there are demographic differences. Men are more likely than women to be child-free, and the rate is higher among white people than non-white adults. The researchers also pointed out policymakers tend to focus more on the concerns of parents and children, and child-free adults, well, they are starting to form voting groups to increase their power at the ballot box. If you are interested in getting more political news from Michigan and Washington, we've got just the thing for you. You can sign up for our Capitol Rundown newsletter. It's just one email each week, and you can get it by pointing your cell phone camera at the screen right now. This will take you to the sign-up page, or you can head to WLNS.com/newsletter. And that's our show for this week. Thanks for watching the Capitol Rundown. We'll see you again right here next week.